We are thrilled to have all of you join us this evening for our meeting tonight. We did start with a work session prior to this meeting where we discussed public power. Some folks came in as we were wrapping that up. We are in the process of looking at Radford's public power, and we'll be talking more about that over the coming months and weeks. I do recommend that folks go back and look at that stream if you have not seen what we talked about. There was a brief section where we talked a little bit about Radford's power supply and how we do the business we do. So it's a very informative part. We do like to begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, we'll ask Gary Harris to come forward and lead us in the pledge.
All veterans may render a salute. Present arms. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. At this time, we ask that you join us in a moment of silence. You may use this time for reflection, prayer, or however you prepare for the meeting. Thank you all very much. Council members, you all have minutes from our January 23rd regular meeting. Do we have a motion to adopt those as submitted, or are there any amendments to make?
I make a motion to adopt them as presented.
We have a motion to adopt as presented. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. At this time, we will open the floor for citizen comments. We will ask that you come down if you have a comment to make. State your name, use the podium and the microphone to let us know who you are. Limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. I do have my little timer, so I'll do my best to keep track of everything. At this time, we'll open the floor.
Good evening. My name is John Ashley. I'm the family court guy. You can also call me the apology guy. I've emailed all of you, and now you have my email address. Since the Radford City Police Department is apologizing for what police did in Memphis, 600 miles away, how about they apologize for what they have done here? A lot of people in that Facebook post felt the same way I do. Radford City Police admitted to me that they deleted many of the negative comments from that post. A quote from the apology, eroding public faith in law enforcement. If that's what they are concerned about, deleting comments on Facebook is not a good start. Another idea is, how about you change the Radford City Police policy, which requires the public to have a court order to see their policy. There's no going back on it. I have the emails from the police saying it. Why aren't the city employees at the courthouse and Karen, the city HR manager, saying that I don't have to take them to court when the police say that I do? So I filed court papers. Even though you are not named, I dropped them a copy off with Karen, the city HR manager. Since RPD is so concerned about police in Memphis, eroding public trust in law enforcement, that they say sue us to see our policy. I'll do my part. Per 1.17.1-208, any member of the public can ask to see a copy of John Ashley v. Radford City Police Department. It costs $100 to ask the city of Radford to show paperwork showing that they cannot take a child in violation of a court order and transfer them to a third party without arresting anyone or contacting DSS. They can't say that because that would mean they broke the law and repeatedly covered it up. RPD cannot say that in February 2009, alleged pedophile Captain Chris Caldwell of RPD could not take a child out of school without legal justification, because they know if they did, they wouldn't have been able to take my child. So here's my program. We're going to read paperwork, suicide statistics, and federal funding bills. Now we have court. I'll be getting video from that and posting it online too. I'm posting all this online and taking you on it to change your Google results. I only do this because I'm yet to find one politician that cares. I don't know you. I'm not mad at you. But this town has helped abduct my child. And after I prove it, I want a public apology. After I prove problems with family court, I want local legislation to change. Basic stuff like a child's best interest is to live with a parent unless they violate DSS rules. I don't expect any of you to know or care, but if something doesn't happen come election time, expect me to go door to door through your districts explaining to people why they should not vote for you. That paperwork you have, that's just the beginning, and we'll go over that next week. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else have a comment for the public record? Seeing none, we will close that portion of the meeting. Oh, are you coming forward? This is not the public hearing. We will be having a public hearing regarding the townhomes. That's later, yes. You certainly may use this time if you choose to, but this is the time where citizens may make comments about anything regarding the public record. Okay? Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we will close that portion of the meeting. Council members, this is an opportunity for a 1-minute response if anyone has a response. Okay, thank you very much. We will close that portion of the meeting. At this time, we do want to take a moment to reflect on African American contributions to the city of Radford, to the Commonwealth of Virginia, to the United States of America. It is Black History Month. This is a time where we do take a moment to look back and to see the different things that have been done by so many people over hundreds of years. And as such, Mrs. Foster has a proclamation to share.
Thank you for the cheerleading in the back. Black History Month 2023. Whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas Black History Month grew out of the establishment in 1926 of Negro History Week by Carter G. Woodson and the Association of the Study of African American Life and History. And whereas the observance of Black History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its democratic ideas. And whereas the City of Radford continues to work toward becoming an inclusive community in which all citizens, past, present, future, are respected, recognized for their contributions and potential contributions to our community, the state, the country, and the world. And whereas the City of Radford is proud to honor the history and contributions of African Americans in our community throughout our state and nation, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Radford City Council that February 2023 be known as Black History Month, and all citizens are encouraged to celebrate our diverse heritage, culture, and continue our efforts to create a world that is more just, peaceful, and prosperous for all. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we adopt this resolution.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And a worthy proclamation indeed. Please look out for the Black History Month programs that take place across the city of Radford, through the New River Valley, and in the Commonwealth of Virginia over the next few weeks. There are many. At this time, we have the opportunity to recognize someone who has given a tremendous amount of service to this community in every way, shape, and form. This is a City of Radford resolution honoring Tracy Howard. Whereas the Radford City Council honors the service and contributions of Tracy Howard to the City of Radford, and whereas Tracy has served as the City of Radford's General Registrar for 31 years, and whereas in his tenure as the General Registrar, Tracy has served in various roles at the state level, including but not limited to the Voter Registrars Association President and Regional Director, State Board of Elections Benchmark Work Group and Advisory Work Group, and Virginia Representative for a congressional briefing on election security. And whereas Tracy's been awarded the Voter Registrar Association Virginia Star Award and received several certifications, including Certified General Registrar through Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service at UVA, Virginia Commonwealth General Registrar Certification, and Virginia Registration and Election Certification through the U.S. Election Center, as well as was a Fellow of the Sorensen Institute of Political Leadership at UVA. And whereas Tracy has accomplished running smooth elections and setting a precedent statewide for how elections should be conducted throughout his career, and whereas Tracy's contributions to the city also include service to the Planning Commission, member of the Board of Zoning Appeals, Radford City Emergency Planning Committee, Radford City Crackers Neck Study Group, Radford Representative to the American Legion Boys State, First NRV Federal Credit Union Board, and whereas Tracy Howard has served Radford with dedication, expert knowledge, and love of the profession throughout his tenure, and his expertise is invaluable. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Radford does hereby honor and thank Tracy Howard for his 31 years of leadership and dedicated service to our community. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this resolution. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Tracy, would you come forward and be recognized? And I think he deserves a round of applause. Thank you for your service. This is a small token, but we cannot thank you enough for all you've done for our community. Do you have anything you want to say? I'm not going to. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's always wonderful when we get to celebrate things in our community, to recognize individuals, and to show our support for the things that make Radford a great place. We do have some old business to, well, actually, we've got our public hearing we need to take a look at. And as such, we need to go on and ask Melissa to come on forward. Then we're going to begin with the public hearing. Melissa Skelton is going to give us an overview of the townhomes, or excuse me, the townhomes for Lovely Mount Drive.
Correct.
So Melissa, if you will please walk us through this real briefly, and then we will open the floor for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For you this evening, we have another public hearing to review the rezoning, a proposed rezoning change from R3 to R4. The developer, property owner and developer has requested for this rezoning to accommodate 30 townhome units along Lovely Mount Drive. The current parcel sizes are 9.12 acres and 1.501 acres. They are right across the street from one another. The future land use within the classification of our comprehensive plan does designate this as a low-density residential district. Looking at some of the standards to compare the R3, current R3 zoning with R4, with the R4 district ultimately. The current density for R3 is up to 7 units per acre. Looking at the standards for high-density use in the R4 is 10 units per acre. If you're looking at an R3 district, we allow a special use permit for duplexes. So if that were to go through, that would be 5 duplexes per acre, which is equal to the 10 acres per acre that is allowed within the R4. I provided some lot size standards that they have to meet for the development. Ultimately, the developer is proposing less than 3 units per acre in total, which is consistent with what a low-density development is required. Here's an overview of the proposed development. You'll see on the left side of the screen there will be 6 units in that 1.5 acres, and then there will be an additional 24 on the left side of the parcel. And here's a closer view of this proposed development. They did provide a rendition of what they are looking at developing, so you can see the different style townhomes. They are looking at upper-end townhomes. Throughout the site plan development process, if approved and rezoned, city staff, including planning, engineering, water, stormwater, will all identify and make sure that they meet the standards for the proposal. I do have the developer here this evening, and as well as their engineer, if we have additional questions for you all to ask.
Questions for Melissa before we move forward? I have one question. At some of the earlier discussions, there were some concerns about the parking issue. Has that been addressed at all in any of the planning process so far?
It has not, and because the planning process has not begun until we have the rezoning approved.
Okay.
One thing that's, the city has historically done is not require full-blown development plans and that investment if we're not going to, ask them or not allow them to move forward with the proposal. So that'll be vetted out through that process. This does have to come back, since it is a townhome development, it does have to come back through Planning Commission and for approval, as well as City Council for the HOA approvals. So
Okay.
you'll see future if approved.
Sounds good. All right, at this time, we will open the floor for our public hearing. We will ask that, do you have something else you wanted to add before we open the floor for the public hearing? If you would like to come on up to the mic and state who you are and let us know.
Thank you, Mayor. My name's Steve Simonis. I'm with Balzer and Associates, 80 College Street in Christiansburg. We're the development consultant helping the owner. Tonight with me is Court Rosen again from the development company as well. I just wanted to touch on a few things. I know several of you have heard this before. It is technically another public hearing, so for the benefit of our new council members and any of our folks here in the audience that hadn't heard it before, if you would just entertain a few minutes from me. I just wanted to touch through the highlights of the project, and again, remind everybody, because it's been a few months, why we're here and what we're asking for. So again, as Melissa said, the proposal's for 30 townhomes. One thing that we always look at when we're looking at rezoning is the comprehensive plan. And while the comprehensive plan, as Melissa stated, does call this out as low density, typically you don't think of a townhouse development as low density. However, the way this is designed and the number of units we have in there, as she mentioned, is around 3 units per acre. So it is meeting those low density regulations that are looked at in the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. The reason we're asking for the R4 is strictly for the use. So the townhome use itself is not allowed in that R3. But again, we're meeting those density requirements within that lower underlying zoning district. The other piece of it is the comprehensive plan also talks about the city's housing stock at the time that was written. So at the time that was written, 82%, and I don't know if that's how close that is now, but 82% of the city's housing stock was single-family residential. So this is something else that we wanted to bring to the market. This is a for-sale product. These would be on fee-simple lots. So this is a for-sale product that's going to hit a lower price point than you would with some of your higher-end single-family residential neighborhoods. And just over the last few months, as we've all been seeing the impacts of the economy, the higher interest rates, a lot of young families, young professionals, even empty nesters might not be able to afford a $400,000 or $500,000 single-family home. So the hope is to be able to provide these 3-bedroom townhomes in a nice, small, compact community, a lot of open space, to be able to provide something we don't have a lot of right here in Radford. So again, the townhomes themselves will be 2-story units, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. As Melissa stated, we would, looking at that craftsman-style architecture in it itself. The parcel itself, anybody that knows Lovely Mount, there's an old house sitting on there on the right-hand side. The 9.17 there on the left-hand side as you're going up Lovely Mount, up towards the top of the mountain, is primarily wooded. That was a big piece of what we wanted to do with this project, is maintain most of that vegetation as passive open space. We'll switch to, and Melissa showed this picture as well. So again, we're trying to compact that in there. That was the reason for the requested parking variance. It was part of our application. Just to be clear, Planning Commission chose not to act on that variance at their hearing. They did vote 6-0 to recommend approval to City Council for the approval of the project, but did not act on the variance request. And as Melissa said, that would be something that we would take up with city staff. We do have ways we can get additional parking. What we were trying to avoid is the feeling of an apartment complex or a student housing development. If we have to park that higher rate, we just end up with more impervious area, more parking lot. And because of the tenant mix and the homeowners we're looking to have here, we're figuring those 2 cars a piece for a small young family or a young professional. It's not going to be a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, type of a student housing project. So that's why we were trying to reduce those parking spaces. But we will certainly work through that process with staff if council sees fit to move us along to the next steps. Building heights will meet all the city zoning requirements. Homeowners Association will be in place to maintain the sidewalks, the street, the parking lots, the stormwater management areas, all the open space or any recreational amenities that are included with the development itself. R4 projects are required to provide 25% open space on site, plus the townhome use has to have 10% of that overall project area to be recreational. Scroll through here and just right there. So you can see here in this area, we've got over 70% of dedicated open space with this project. And of that, 13% at a minimum would be reserved for recreational area. You can see the green and the blue. The green would be our recreational space areas where we've got a little bit better grade for either playgrounds, tot lots, that type of stuff, gazebos. And then passive open space is the majority of your real steep slopes up there where we've talked about maybe having some nature trails that residents could walk through as well. We talked about the parking as far as what we were asking for right now. We're showing 2 preliminary stormwater management locations. One would be an underground system right here under the parking lot. The other one would be an above ground stormwater detention facility right there. That would pick up all the development water, detain it back to pre-development rates, and then release it out into the existing channels there along Lovely Mount. Any signage or lighting would be based on city standards. Landscaping would be based on city standards. Traffic's been talked about over the last several months. When we submitted the zoning application initially, we had done a preliminary traffic analysis on any turn lane warrants for our development off of Lovely Mount. Because of the limited amount of traffic on Lovely Mount and the limited amount of traffic turning in and out of our development, no turn lanes were warranted based on VDOT standards. After, I believe, our first Planning Commission meeting, we were asked to go back and maybe look a little harder at Rock Road. We did that. We used VDOT data and VDOT standards engineering practices on turn lane warrants on Rock Road as well as sight distance on Rock Road. So if you're sitting at that intersection of Lovely Mount to pull out right or left. So we looked at those. All those met VDOT requirements, and we did not kick into any warrants for turn lanes from Rock Road onto Lovely Mount as well. So we provided that information along with a letter and some data, I believe before the joint public hearing, I think. I believe that's when it was. Water and sewer connections and capacities been reviewed and confirmed by city staff. Trash will be handled with 2 community dumpster areas. As I mentioned, Planning Commission had heard this and voted 6-0 to move it forward with a positive recommendation to you all. And we have 2 proffers currently on the table right now that we presented. One would be developed in general conformance with the submitted rezoning application, which is our text, our traffic data, as well as our drawings, and that the property itself would only be used for townhome residential use. And then if there are any home occupations, that would be as allowed within the zoning ordinance itself. So I try to speed through that pretty quickly. I know you're busy tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions as well as Mr. Rosen, if council has any right now. Otherwise, we're happy to address later if there's anything.
I know you had seen this as part of Planning Commission, but Bobby and Kelly, this may be one of the first times you've seen some of this. Do you all have any questions about what's been presented so far? No. Okay.
We're here. Just shout at us if you need us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, at this time, we're going to open the floor for the public hearing. We will ask that you come down, state your name for the record, use the microphone, and please keep your comments directed toward the project as to what your concerns, questions, or thoughts might be.
Hi, I'm Dr. Zigalinsky, 100 Charmont Drive. So to keep this brief, you've all got a letter from the citizens of the area as a group, so I hope you've all had that. At the joint committee meeting between Radford University and Radford, I watched the webcast. Mayor, you stated that the citizens need to take ownership of their neighborhood, and that's what all of us here are trying to do. We're trying to take ownership of our area of Radford. Not in the literal sense, okay? What has made some of us disgruntled is we feel that the attitudes we received from the prior Planning Commission were very disrespectful of that. In fact, at one of the meetings, some of the members were called bullying. Standing up for ownership of our neighborhood is not bullying, and I'd like to get that on the table first out. We are attempting to take our ownership of a very beautiful area of Radford. That being said, as I stated in your letter, there were numerous issues with the proposed zoning change. First out, the majority of the R4 zoning in Radford is in the downtown area and areas around the university, okay? So this does not really fit with the nature of the area around Lovely Mount Drive, that whole area. It does not fit. It breaks the traditional nature. My feeling, and this is, you know, with all due respect, my personal feeling is that it doesn't matter. If anybody wants a rezoning in Radford, they're gonna get it. And without very little concern with what the people think. But that's just my take from what I've seen so far. Okay, now, I will refer to the housing policy number 3 in the Radford Plan. Goal H12 states the goal is to encourage new housing development in existing neighborhoods that is sensitive to existing architectural styles and development patterns. Well, we don't feel that this is at all in tune with the existing patterns and development in this neighborhood. This is primarily a very heavily residential area. Single-family homes work great. That's what most of the area is, and we feel that would be more fitting. Now, housing policy H13, encourage conservation of natural resources and protection of important watersheds, prime open spaces, natural landscapes of scenic ecological beauty when developing new housing in previously undeveloped areas. We feel that that doesn't fit here either. Yes, it's a density of 30 on a very unbuildable mountain, and a good portion of that mountain is going to be taken apart when this is built, at least when part of it is built. Now, other issues that cropped up in the letter that we sent to you, the first was the blind curves. I don't know how many of you have actually driven this road to the hairpin turn and back. Go all the way up to Charmont, go around to the hairpin turn, and come back down the other way. Those of us coming down the mountain, where this development is going to be, is right at a hairpin turn. There are pictures of that hairpin turn in the letter that we sent to you. This is an accident waiting to happen for 2 reasons. Number one, there's not enough parking spaces in there. There's no turnaround. How is a bus, a moving van, a UPS guy, a FedEx guy gonna turn around? Aside from maybe backing out onto Lovely Mount. And if someone is coming around the blind curve, that's an accident waiting to happen. God forbid it's a child, too, running out into the street, so that's an issue, too. I'm sorry, I'm having a bifocal issue here. The traffic study by Bowser, it appeared to me, anyway, to be an estimate from a book on traffic studies, which appeared to be several years old. I could be wrong there. But we need to realistically assess the situation with real data. In our letter, we also commented on drainage, okay? The drainage ditches on Lovely Mount that have not been really cleared out. Now, somebody responded to that letter telling me there was 1.3 inches of rain the day that I took those pictures. If you go back to the National Weather Service archives of historical rain data, that is incorrect. On the day I took those pictures, there was 0.22 inches of rain. The day before, there was 0.17 inches of rain. That's a big difference from 1.38. And those gullies were relatively busy at that time. So I want to stress the importance for getting accurate data from reasonable sources before decisions are made. The National Weather Service has a public information service. You can look these things up. Okay. Also, if you went down that road today, those drainage ditches were hopping. There's a catch basin at the end of Lovely Mount on the left. That was getting pretty full. So my question is, we need to pay attention to what more catch basins up the road are going to do to this. It's going to be a lot of water. It's a mountain, and we're building on it, so it's going to be a lot of water. Also, several of the residents, and I'm not speaking for myself, but they were concerned about the quality of internet service. Would that be degraded with the additional building on the, in the area? We were told, or they were told, that Shentel is putting in a new fiber optic system, which is great. However, when I called them and asked them, they told me that did not include any improvements up Lovely Mount Drive and onto Charmont. So again, I'm going to stress the need for getting accurate information. Who's right and who's wrong here? I'm not going to argue that. But we need to get the right information. Somebody needs to say, yes, we're going to improve it, or no, we're not. And that's about all I have to say, so thanks for your consideration. And it was a good meeting with Radford University.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to present as part of the public hearing?
My name is Jim Tynan. I live at 101 Charmont Drive and have for 30 years. I got a preface here I want to make before I get started. Any of the comments that I make involving council, commission, you all, any similar comment is not aimed at the new council members. You have no idea. I mean, you got a letter from us, I know that, but you haven't been involved in it long enough to be responsible for some of the things I'm going to bring forward. You will be included in one of my closing remarks. I think I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. We got 14 here tonight, and that's sort of a dwindling number. At our first public hearing here, I think we had 15 to 20, closer to 20, and I think we had 9 to 11 speakers. We're not going to have anywhere near that tonight. We had a neighborhood meeting. We actually, following that public hearing, we attended the very next planning commission meeting, and about the same number of us were there. We said about the same thing, made about the same presentations, and that was on 11/21, I believe. Following that, we decided to have a neighborhood meeting, and we all got together, and it was the biggest conglomeration of us I can remember ever getting together, and it was probably, I don't know, 22, 23, 24 people. And we discussed many things. Beverly already covered several of them. One of the things she did not cover, and I intend to cover, is we took a couple of votes on different items. And the only one that I think is really relevant at this point in time to you is that we had one subject that was unanimously voted on and unanimously agreed to. And that was, number one, council did not listen to us, paid zero attention to us, gave us zero respect. We get to the planning commission, and they give us even less than you did, okay? So at that point in time, we have some pretty smart folks up there. They said, screw it, the deal's already done. I'm not wasting any more time on it. And so we have the 14 of us here tonight that did not say that, and we are here. Now, I will make a comment, since our friends here from, and I use that term loosely, from Balzer, mentioned the comprehensive plan. Well, I'm particularly referring to the follow-up to that, which was the 21 housing something or other. You referred to it, Mayor, in the last meeting we were at concerning this issue, and I happened to go in there and I happened to read both of them. Cover to cover, every word, read the supplement twice. Now I better understand why we got the treatment from you and the Planning Commission. It's a done deal. This damn bread is baked. You don't care where you get your multiple family dwellings. You don't care who it hurts. You don't care one thing in that supplement. The biggest word that's used in that supplement, not neighbors, not neighborhood, not care, not maintenance, nothing. The word that's used in there is creativity. How can we be creative enough to stick these places anywhere we want to stick them, just so we can meet some kind of a housing commission goal of some kind, okay? That's nonsense. That's not the way to deal with this. Anyhow, I got more on that, no more tonight on that. That's coming up. I'll be back addressing both your plan, your 5-year, what do you call it, the comprehensive plan and this home deal. We'll be back to talk about that further because that's a done deal. That commission has not said no to anybody. Nothing. If it goes to the commission, done. Rubber stamp. And then you all rubber stamp the rubber stamp. That's not how government works, folks. We pay the taxes. We elect you. Which leads me to my next issue. During that commission meeting, which dissuaded so many of our folks from moving forward, we got to a point in the commission meeting where they were going around the table. Do you have this? Do you have that? How do you feel about this? How do you feel? All these preconceived ideas were bang, 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 bang. Well, then we finally get to, and I do not see her here tonight, and I hate getting on somebody that's not here, but Commissioner Huntington, when it came time for her to make her statements, she made them, and then all of a sudden she had this afterthought of, wow, they might even have been trying to bully us into this. Okay? No, they might even be trying to bully us into changing our minds. Tells me two things. Here again, I hate she's not here because I'd be glad to tell her face to face. If you think that, you have no idea what bullying really is. Zero. And for an attorney, that's pretty sad. But number two, it refers to change our minds. They already had their minds made up. They've had them made up on everything you've sent them. That's not how this is supposed to work. Actually, what it does remind you of is bullies become victims and victims become bullies syndrome. And we have a heck of a lot of that going in to this country right now, going on in this country right now. And guess what? It is alive and well in Radford, Virginia. And that's a shame. Third point. Ambush. The original meeting that we had, your very first public hearing, when we went around and everybody got up here and spoke, I was close as I've ever come to being speechless. I didn't understand it. I very much understand it now. I did not then. I did not know, I had no idea how this could happen. I mean, you know, right down our neighborhood, and they're trying to do something that's totally inconsistent with our neighborhood, and I don't know about it. Well, I found out how it happened. It was not only, I mean, part of baking this bread before it ever got to the oven was the fact that it was a conflicted piece of business from day one. The chairman of the commission, he's not here either. Mr. Watson happens to work from Balzer and Company. I was in business for over 40 years in a highly regulated industry. If I ever tried to pull something like that, I'd have been fired 35, 40 years ago. You can't get away with that. Your attorney says, but it's legal. It's here, Section 12 of the, whatever the state code is that it's in there. Yeah, all conflict of interest is personal. It follows the person, I understand that very well. However, just because it is not illegal does not make it right. It may have been legal, but it was wrong. And I'll tell you how he knew it. Halfway through the third meeting, what does he decide? I'm going to recuse myself from a vote. Well, the vote was already baked. He'd done the heavy lifting long before it ever got to that point. I'm going to recuse myself. Why? Well, because of the appearance of conflict. Well, you're damn right it was, you're darn right it was an appearance of conflict, and he should have recognized that from day one and recused himself. And what's more, counsel should have known that, and you should have had him recuse himself. But he didn't. And that's how we got ambushed. And it was pure, plain, simple an ambush. All right, my last remarks. The week of Christmas, a couple interesting things happened. Our folks down in Roanoke, which I don't consider a neighbor, but they're close enough for comparison purposes. Our friends down in Roanoke approved a project on Brandon Avenue that I am familiar with. I'm familiar with it because I know some of the associates involved in it. They finally approved it, and it's off and running. 3 years after the Planning Commission approved it. How about them apples? Not a rubber stamp. Took them 3 years to get through what the Planning Commission approved 3 years before. Think about that a little bit. On top of that, the same week, only later in the week, our friends over in Montgomery County rejected a project on 114 over there. And if you're familiar with 114, nothing gets rejected on 114. You got more projects over there than kids have toys. But they did. And I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't know how long it'll take them. I know it'll take them 3 years. But it did take at least a year to get, the better part of a year to get to this point. Now, what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means that whether you like it or whether you don't, and I don't know anything, I don't know that much about either of the projects. I know probably a little more about Roanoke, but the point is, whether you wanted it through or whether you didn't, you had one satisfaction that you could hang your hat on, and that's that the representatives you elected did their due diligence. They did what you elected them to do. They went into it, they looked at it, and just for the sake of an argument, I can tell you exactly why both of them rejected it for so long in Roanoke and so far in Blacksburg, or in Christiansburg. Safety. Safety. You have a guy on the Montgomery Board of Supervisors over there that's a retired state trooper. He understands safety. He understands roads, accidents, egress, ingress, where you should park, he understands all that. Now, we think we do, but he really does. And he said, it's not right. It's not going to work. We're going to have people killed over there. So what happens? They delay it. Now, what's going to happen? I don't have a clue. But I do know one thing. They did their due diligence. And my charge to you is take your time. What's the hurry? What's the hurry? You want to run this thing through at the end of the year to get a number to do, I don't know why. I have no idea. But it makes 0 sense to me to try and run something through from December to Christmas and just, it's a rubber stamp. And I don't know why it's a rubber stamp, but I think I do. And it has everything to do with your comprehensive plan and that epistle that followed it. And there will be more on that, because that what you have put up, what you've done in that epistle that follows it, the home study, whatever it was, is you've given the Planning Commission the absolute right to do whatever they want to do, period. You look at that, there hasn't been one no vote for the whole past year, and that's as far as I got. Not a single vote, not a single no vote. So that means you have 5 council people and six commissioners, all of the same thought, all of the same mind, all with the same idea. That does not sound like democracy. That sounds like groupthink and an organized method to change what's in play. And that's a wrong thing to do, folks. There, Rick, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has a comment for the public hearing?
How you doing? I'm Mark Lamb at 137 Charmont. I think a couple times, I guess one of the things I'll address is, what you have up here looks nice, and the individual sale that you're talking about doing. You've stated several times that this wouldn't be any kind of low-income housing, Section 8 type of sale, anything like that whatsoever. Just to, based on what you've shown, doesn't look like it would be. But is there any way you're willing to sign off on that would not be the case with this development? That would be appreciated, set a little few minds at ease on that. Second thing is, if you ever had the opportunity, and from what I hear, you may have the opportunity, the owner would, to buy an adjacent parcel to that 1.9 acres on the right-hand side of the road, would you ever go back to your original process of having individual home sites on that larger parcel? That'd be it.
Thank you, sir. Are there any additional questions or comments for the public hearing?
Excuse me, my name is Roger Kurtner. I live on 121 Loveland Drive. Thank you for the opportunity. And I just had a question to the developers. What you've shown here looks really good. But let's say hypothetically that if you do not rezone, what would you put in there now? My concern is, what would you put in if you didn't get to put the townhouses in? What would it look like?
Well, let's get through your statement and then
I just had a question.
Okay.
I mean, the alternative, I'm concerned may be worse than what they're planning on putting in now. I'd just like to know that it's your property, Mr. Stumps, and if you can't put in the townhouses, what would go in there? That's my question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Are
much.
there any additional citizens who have a comment or question they'd like to make during the public hearing?
Ken Gray, I live at 113 Charmont. One thing about the density, if you look at that map, the only place where you can put a house is the place where you got the 33 townhomes crammed in. And if you take and put single-family dwelling, you can probably get 9 on there, because the rest of it is up the mountain. And the thing where you have public recreation stuff, those are mountains. That's the only place they've got houses, townhouses, is the only place you can put them, and they have crammed all the houses that you could put on the top of the mountain, and by combining them, it looks like you got the same density, but it isn't. The part that's got the houses is packed, and they look very nice with those buildings and the lawn in front, but the plan from above shows what looks like strip mall apartments. They're basically, you park right in front of the house. If there's room for one car, barely enough room to back out, and there's 2 per house, and it's 3 bedrooms, and there's no place else to park. It's on the mountain. They're basically cramming 33 fancy named apartments in a place that can hold 9 single-family houses. Right down on Rock Road, they've got single-family houses, same zoning. They don't look bad. This looks like strip mall apartments. And that's the only thing you can pack in there. And when they try to pull out on the road, it's going to be a mess. The other thing is, they don't belong in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood was R3, single-family houses. If they put those in, that's fine. But they're putting in R4. They want to get a zoning variance so they don't have parking. It's down at the bottom of a sharp hill, and it doesn't fit anything in the neighborhood. In Pulaski County, when we had a variance for somebody to put a dock on a place that was a little too small for the dock by the zoning, they had everybody in the neighborhood, I don't know whether vote counted for anything, but everybody in the neighborhood got to say, yes, that would be okay with us. When they put a bobber out in front of the lake, the same thing. The whole neighborhood had to kind of approve it. And I think if you look at everybody except for the people from Christiansburg who are coming down here, building this and leaving, nobody wants this kind of density packed in. And if you take the R4 and count the amount of buildable land, not the mountain, but the buildable land, this thing is just packed. And it doesn't fit the community, and what are we gonna do if somebody has a party? A kid's party, or a graduation, or if somebody invites somebody over Thanksgiving. There's 2 parking places for 33 houses crammed in a space that should hold probably 9 single-family houses. And if you kind of look at their cute little map there and figure out where you'd put the house with some space between it, you can't line up the house and then make a pie wedge and say that's the, that goes on a certain amount of acreage. It's very deceptive. And then when you look at their nice pictures, those are nice pictures, but those do not look like what the plans are on the plot. The plot has 2 cars crammed in right in front of the house that is 2-story, so you can pack it in. And then behind, going up the road, up the hill, is a little bit of yard, and then right behind that is mountain. And that is not recreational area. That is not little trails. The people who live in this place, if they're going to use that trails, are going to be mountaineering people, because it's straight up. And there is no way to build on that unless you build tree houses. So this whole thing is very deceptive. It is not fit, probably R4 theories, let alone the R3. And I see no reason why we should have to sacrifice our neighborhood, which is R3, and the rest of the place around it is R3, so they can put expensive apartments with parking right in front. And that even gotten down to trying to hit things when you drive down the hill. So anyway, safety, it's a bad place to put it. Nobody wants it there. Single-family housing, like you already have it zoned, would be fine. And if they manage to put, 20, whatever it is in there, they can cram 20 houses on that mountain. They probably have to dig in to do it. I don't know how they do that, but this is not this is not higher density, this is much higher density. And I think nobody in the neighborhood wants it. We'd be happy if it followed the zoning, but this is not following the zoning. And I don't think anybody who lives anywhere there has said anything positive about it. Everybody is just pissed, some of them more pissed than others, but it's just not appropriate. That's it.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question or comment for the public hearing portion of the meeting? Seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public hearing portion of the meeting. I think when we come back around to this under our old business, we may revisit some of the questions that were brought forward. Just to be clear that once the public hearing portion is closed, participation from the audience is ended at that point in time. So if there are any additional questions or comments, now is the opportunity. Okay. We'll go on and close the public hearing portion of the meeting. Under Old Business Council, we do have 2 areas that we need to look at making appointments. You have letters from citizens regarding interest in the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals. So I will say, have you all had a chance to review the letters? And do we have any nominations for the Planning Commission?
I think we've all read it, but I've read it. I tell you what, we've got a lot of good and qualified candidates here, and I appreciate the genuine interest, and I know that's probably not always been the case to have these many people come forward, and every single one of these people would be great. Former Councilman Rob Grotman has submitted an application to rejoin Planning Commission. He's previously served on that. He's previously served on council. I know he's real active in the business community and working on where he has the brewery and has a lot of things that he's been thinking about. I think he'd be an excellent addition. Again, that you couldn't go wrong with anyone in this group. A lot of dedicated and worthy appointments, but with Rob, you know, we've already paid for him to go get the training, and he has all the experience. So I think I'd be comfortable making a motion to nominate Rob Grotman.
We have a motion to nominate Mr. Grotman. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any discussion? Do we have any additional nominations for Planning Commission?
Well, I have to say, I'm really impressed with the broad spectrum of candidates that we have interested this time as well. And so I know that I had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Grotman on several occasions about openings, and so I have found that sitting with him on council, he was always a linear thinker and a wealth of information. So I would have no problem with that nomination as well, but I would want to add that these other folks that have expressed interest, we have room for you. There's things that we want you to participate in within the city government and the city mechanism. So this is one of those times where I wish we actually had more openings. Normally it's like, trying to find enough really good candidates, but we really, I want to thank everyone who did put their name forth. This can be a lot of work on the Planning Commission. So thank you for your interest, and I would also support Rob Grotman.
Okay. Any additional nominees for Planning Commission? Hearing none, and we have a motion and a second to nominate Rob. Do we have anything else? All in favor of Rob Grotman for the Planning Commission, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Now, Board of Zoning Appeals. We didn't actually have anyone who sent us a letter specifically for the Board of Zoning Appeals, but I think there's some synergy here where we have some folks who have some relevant experience who might make sense. So what I would suggest is, could we reach back out to some of our applicants for the Planning Commission and ask if they might have interest in the Board of Zoning Appeals? Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Yes. Okay.
I'd say, to be clear, instead of reaching out to some, I would say we probably reach out to everyone that has put their name forth, but also make sure that we make the announcement again that that position is open and we need to fill it. So
If someone is interested in the Board of Zoning Appeals, they can send a letter to Jenny Goodman, and we will go from there. Jenny, would you mind reaching out to the other 4 folks and asking them if they have an interest in the Board of Zoning Appeals? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Council. Now we are moving back to what we just had the public hearing regarding, and I'm going to go through just a little bit of history on this before we get into additional questions and comments. Then what I'd like to do is go around and let each council member ask a question, make a statement, whatever they prefer to do, get additional information wherever we choose to go from there. So Jeffrey Stump is the owner of the property that we've talked about. Melissa did a great job going through this. And the request has been made to rezone from R3, which is single-family residential. It does include duplexes and things along that line, to R4, which is multifamily residential, townhomes and apartments and things like that. Balzer and Associates are the agent and engineer for the project. Now, we had a joint public hearing between Planning Commission and City Council on November 14th. There were several concerns that were brought forward. Those things were looked at. Planning Commission also had a meeting on December the 19th. At that meeting, they recommended the approval of the rezoning request, 6 affirmative votes with 1 abstention. So those who voted, all voted unanimously. Now, city staff, along with the city engineer, has reviewed this project. They've advised council that it appears that there's no items that appear to be significant at this point in time, but anything that is still remaining a concern would be addressed through the site plan process. So council, before we get into the ordinance itself, I'd like to go around and let everybody have a moment to address their concerns, to ask any questions, to move forward from there. Seth, you serve on the Planning Commission as well, so you've seen this multiple times. Would you like to start us off?
Sure, yeah. For me personally, this has been one of the things, especially on Planning Commission, that I've reached out to people the most, had the most feedback, and I can tell you that I've spent a lot of time and given this a lot of thought, because it is obviously a very important issue for a lot of people. So I do want to make sure that that's clear, that it's something I don't take lightly and something that I've thought about a lot. And I do appreciate staff. They have answered and followed up on a lot of the questions and issues that you guys have brought forward, and have really been very great about getting us some information, which helps, us make our decision. A couple of things that I think are important. I too, and I've shared this with the developer, have a concern with parking. I think we've talked about that. And again, I think as the mayor said, this is just a approval of rezoning. A site plan still has to come before us. So, and that's where we would address parking and some of these other issues. And I think, multiple times on public record, the developer has stated that this is not Section 8 housing, or these are made-to-sell units. And I think that that's for what we're looking for in that neighborhood, and just as a city right now, meets where we're looking for. We have a lack of housing in the area. We're always trying to retain residents, whether it be, I think at our meeting with RU, they said, was it 80% of the professors? Yeah, do not live in Radford. So there's certainly a need for housing, and I just want to reiterate, I appreciate everyone coming. Every thought and concern you've had, I take seriously and have given it a lot of thought. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Jesse, do you have any thoughts? You've also had a chance to review this through a couple of meetings as well.
Yeah, so I just think for clarity, just to go over a couple of things, and I think Ms. Skelton, you'll probably be a resource for us here. So in the R3, could the density actually be greater than what they're currently looking at with this build?
Melissa, will you go to the podium? Thank you. I'm sorry.
R3 allows for up to 7 units per acre. So all conditions is perfect. Clearly, we all know the topography in that area. All conditions perfect. They could have 70 homes within there. The one thing about this proposal that, we keep talking about safety, safety, safety. With single-family development, these homes are backing out onto Rock Road every driveway. What they're proposing 2 exits, one on each side of the road, that they're not backing out on. So they've really tried to mitigate that safety issue. I appreciate Planning Commission and all the questions that they have asked and been thorough with, but yes, when you're looking at single-family homes, the standards won't be coming through City Council and Planning Commission. So, this development, there's a little bit more control over to make sure that those safety measures are met and not backing out and making anything harder and worse on that road.
Okay. And another thing I want to address, I keep hearing safety issues, and that is a concern of all of us, obviously. And one thing that I will say that I know we're committed to, as this project perhaps develops, these are things we're going to address. And so we would want continued feedback, because if there's things like, I drove up there again the other day and looked at the land, because I too have taken this very seriously, and obviously we have a lot of concerned folks that live up there and have big investments up there. And I certainly want to honor that and give that the time that it deserves. And I can say I see what you're talking about. It's an interesting little road to go up and down. So one thing that I could see just really right off the cuff is we need to do a better job with or without this project is probably, delineating those lines that go up and down. So we have other things we can address just right off the bat, I think, that will help with safety regardless of this project. So I think the mayor and I had a conversation about that. So there are things we need to do just right off the cuff with that. And this is an area that we're going to be very concerned about. We're going to be leaning into. And so as we go, I think you've heard, this is just to change the nomenclature. As we go, we're going to be looking at exactly where things are going to fit on these parcels, what that's going to look like. We're going to be having safety as a top concern. And obviously, through the process, I am absolutely certain that if you see things that you feel are unsafe, that you're also going to let us know about that, because safety is all of our first concern. I think I wanted to address the density issue, because I think one of the folks that was here, I think that's kind of what he was touching on. If you don't do this, could you possibly do other things? We know the property has some limitations on it already. I do have to, piggyback. I know that, it's been brought up, the housing study that we have done, and we've created that just to see as a community how to better serve the community. I was shocked that 80% of the RU staff cannot live in this community. It's not that they don't want to, we just simply don't have enough houses. And I can tell you from being in real estate myself, we always have more demand here, thank goodness, than we can supply. So we have a wonderful community. We want to be thoughtful about our processes, and I can tell you that it's the fact that, I'm hearing that the Planning Commission is just giving a rubber stamp and council is giving a rubber stamp. That's not the case at all. We've had a lot of conversations to ensure that this is a project that is viable, but also is respectful to the community that you live in. And I live very close to this community and up and down that road as well. I think most of us are. We're not a very large community, so whatever goes up, it's going to impact all of us. We all take those roads. So I think at this point, I'm interested to go to the next step of this to see what we can come up with. So I am in support of changing this from R3 to R4, but just know that that doesn't mean that that's a stamp of approval to whatever comes across the board. You got to realize the Planning Commission, they're citizens. So they are just like you guys. A lot of them own land and have businesses here, and they want to be very conscientious about what goes in, as all of us do as well. So many of you sitting out there are friends of ours, and so the last thing we'd ever want to do is to do anything to cause harm to you directly, obviously, but we also have to weigh that with the common good of the community and what we need to do to balance that. So in regards to the safety issues, that's a conversation that doesn't stop here. This is a conversation that has to continue to happen. I think, that's probably all I want to say at this point, but just to know that I appreciate everyone coming and sharing your thoughts and feelings. Those things have made an impact. They have given us pause for thought. So please know your voices do matter.
Thank you very much. Now, Kelly and Bobby, this is really the first chance you all are getting to go through a lot of this stuff, and we want to give you an opportunity to both make comment and ask any questions. We have some resources here. Bobby, what thoughts or questions do you have?
Well, obviously this is all new to me. First and foremost, appreciate everybody that came up here. That says a lot about your character that you're here. And I likewise, I'm thinking this through, and I'm thinking, there's really no. I agree with the gentleman as far as there's really no reason to rush anything. I don't understand. Anytime that you rush into anything, and until you think it thoroughly through, I think normally it's a mistake. And also, I think we have to obviously be aware of how everyone feels and make sure at the end of the day when we make a decision, it needs to be a decision that we're making. Make sure that it's right. It's the right thing to do. So I will say that, and so and like I said, I mean it's kind of a all this is new to me, but people are not new to me. So anyway, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Bobby. Do you have any questions you'd like to have answered this evening before we move forward, or?
Yeah, I mean, I understand we're just looking at voting as far as the rezoning.
This is the rezoning. That's right.
I
And
understand
there will
that.
be a
Yeah.
site plan later. Yes.
Okay. And then the next process, what comes next?
So the site plan, and Melissa, do you want to address some of this about how we typically
Yeah, I wanna
work
make
through
sure
this?
that I'm-
So if we were to rezone this property, then that begins another stage. So Melissa?
So, yes, once the rezoning, if it gets approved, then the engineer and the developer work together to put together a site plan, which comes before staff for review. I bring it before Planning Commission for their recommendation, and then it will come back to City Council. And with that, it'll be the site plan, it'll be the homeowners association, and the plan of development. So all that will come back for you. It really is dependent on when the engineer and developer gets those plans together. That's on their timeline.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have any other questions?
No, no,
Okay,
not right now.
thanks, Bobby. Kelly, what questions or comments do you have?
I want to thank everybody for coming. I definitely heard some things tonight that I did not think about previously as far as usage and parking and water issues and the road and things like that. I did thoroughly read the email that was submitted to all of us. I have rode up there during day and night to kind of see lighting and what's going on, and it is a very intricate situation that we have. We also have a situation where, as someone who manages 6 properties in Radford, there is a huge issue with having places for people to come and live in the city. We only have a certain amount of land, and we have to be very strategic at what we do with it. I know that there is a lot of passion around this project. I know if I lived in an area where it was just single-family homes, and I had 2 people build on both sides of me at the same time last year, and I was not very happy about it at all. But once the project was completed, and I know that Planning Commission and I know that Council, really thought about the things that we're going into and what would be the best for the city overall. When it was done, it wasn't so bad because of all the thought that went into it. I wasn't previous. I know that parking is an issue. 2 spaces seems to be okay for a family that just has, 2 people or 2 people and some kids. They've said that they didn't want to, really bring attention to the fact that each bedroom would be 1 person with 1 car. But what if they did want to have people over? I host 6 Thanksgivings every year at my home, and luckily I don't have to worry about parking, but those people are going to want to have other people than the 2 people that are living there. And there's some water runoff issues that I wasn't aware of. Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. I think I definitely agree with what Jesse's saying, that even if we didn't do this project, we now are aware of a lot of things that maybe need to be improved in your area as far as the roads and safety and water runoff and things like that. I think that's something we definitely will try to delve into and make it a better area for you, even if this project wasn't happening. That being said, we will confidently look at this plan as we go forward. I feel like there's not a lot of places for people to come and live, and it was shocking that many people don't live outside of the city. We're missing out on revenue. We're missing out on so many different things that we will need going forward because we're facing tough times going ahead, and we need to make sure that we move Radford forward in every way that we can that's going to be a benefit for everyone involved. It's difficult to update the housing that we have in some areas because you have to have people that are going to be willing to put forth the money into it. It's very expensive, and a lot of the areas that do have rundown housing are in areas where people at the college or new people coming in might feel uncomfortable living. I think that they've said several times that it's not going to be Section 8. It's going to be something that is for sale. So that makes me really happy that they would want to, put forth that comment and do that. I wouldn't mind seeing them having something in writing, as somebody stated, that they would try not to do, they would not do Section 8. That would make me feel a little better. But I feel like we have to move forward at this time to be able to see what we can do and see what the plan may be. And I feel confident that we will all look at it with many different lenses over and over again and ensure that it's something that works for everybody involved.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to address a couple of things that I heard with some of the discussions. First and foremost, we do thank everybody for coming out and participating, that your comments are welcomed because it helps us to think through this process. We certainly don't claim to have any grand knowledge of everything or any master plan beyond trying to help Radford be the best version of itself that it can be. I would like to talk a little bit about the housing study that was done. This was an intentional piece, not just for the city of Radford, but for all of the New River Valley, working to try to evaluate what housing stock we actually have and what's desirable to families, to individuals looking to move here. That was an important part of a process, and that took a good bit of time to do. You know, a lot was made about what's the hurry, what's the rush. And we've been working for many years on trying to look at our zoning, look at the neighborhoods, look at how our housing stock is serving us as a community, and what do we need, what do we have, how can we improve it, where can we make changes. So this has been part of a much bigger process. I think one of the challenges when we look at a project like this is it has impact on people no matter what you do. Even if we kept this zoning exactly the same and the by right use of the property owner was done, it could result in something the neighborhood might not like. And so I think we're trying to find the best possible outcome for development of this property and to move forward in a way that can benefit everybody as best as possible. I would like to address that this type of townhome might not fit. While there are gorgeous single-family homes further up the mountain, right at the entrance of Lovely Mount off of Rock Road, there's a significant number of townhouses there. And so I think this is actually, from my perception, and there's much left to do, this is a transition from the townhouses that are in place to something that's sort of in between those townhomes and what you might see as you got to the single-family homes on Charmont and further up Lovely Mount. I would like to address what Jesse and both Kelly said, and I'm sure Seth has done this, probably Bobby too. I've driven this thing probably 24 times looking specifically for the things that have been brought forward. I've been up there early in the morning, middle of the day, afternoon rush hour, evening hours, and late at night to try to get the best understanding. I do think there are improvements we can make to the road to try to make it safer for everybody, and things that we've talked about. Could we tweak this? Could we adjust that? Could we make changes here? And that's whether this project happened or not. So thank you for bringing those concerns to our attention. Safety is a concern for everybody with any project that we do. And certainly we rely on our safety experts. None of us up here are safety experts. So we talk with our police, we talk with our engineering staff, we talk with our streets department. We look at folks who actually know more about this than any of us do to help advise us. And again, just as Seth was stating, we've asked an awful lot of questions on this project to try to get as many answers as we can possibly get. Some things will evolve as we go through a site plan and other things should we approve this rezoning. But know that this is not just being done with a blind eye, nor are we trying to rush through something for the sake of rushing. It's trying to address this in a timely manner, because one of the things you do have if you take too long with development is that sometimes that development just ends up never happening. That's not something the city of Radford can afford. We need to take advantage of the opportunities that are before us and to try to make the very best of those things that happen. But having said all of that, I do want to talk a little bit about process, and then I'll open it back up to council. Tonight, if we consider Ordinance 1780, we would have a vote. Then we could decide to take a look at this again in a couple of weeks on a second reading, which gives us time to ask additional questions, to pursue this further, to make a decision. It requires 2 readings for the ordinance to take effect. So any vote held tonight would be one portion of that, and then 2 weeks from now we would have an additional vote should we go down that path. Please understand that, again, lots of questions have been asked, more questions will be asked should we decide to move forward with a rezoning and to see this project move forward. So having said all of that, we do have an ordinance, number 1780, that the city attorney has prepared, which would rezone the property from R3 to R4 and allow the development potentially to take place. Council members, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 1780.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion this evening? So again, with this process, we would have a vote on this ordinance, then we would revisit it again in 2 weeks. Additional questions can be asked in that period of time. So hearing no additional discussion, all in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Oppose.
Okay. So we have 4 ayes and 1 nay on that. We will revisit this ordinance again on February the 27th for a second reading and review the project at that time. All right, thank you very much, council members. I appreciate all your attention and support to this project. It has taken a significant amount of time over the last 3 months as we've moved forward. We also are looking at another development process. K&J Properties has requested the vacation of 2 excess public right-of-ways, which would expand their properties at 1925 2nd Avenue that supports the development of 6 townhomes. You see here on the maps that Jenny is bringing up where that right-of-way would be, and that is 12 feet of 2nd Street between Custis Street and Ingle Street, as well as 15 feet of Custis Street between West Main Street and 2nd Street. So you see both of those displayed in the salmon and lavender colors on that map, which would allow for additional development of those properties. We did hold a public hearing on December the 8th. There were no public comments. Following the public hearing, we appointed a 3-member board of viewers to take a look at the property and the right-of-way. The Board of Viewers met on January 20th and reported back to us that they found the right-of-way vacation creates no public inconvenience. There are no utilities or other issues that would be a problem there. We received that report at our January 23rd meeting, and at that time we requested the city attorney draft an ordinance. Council members, do you all have any questions before we move forward with ordinance 1781?
No.
Do we have a motion to adopt ordinance 1781? So moved. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. A
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Is there a motion to dispense with a second reading?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of dispensing with a second reading, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all very much. Moving to new business. Back in 2011, Radford City Council, led at that time by Mayor Bruce Brown, established an award as a memorial to Robert Allen Big Al Hall, which honored his life and service, his dedication to his community, and contributions to Radford. At a meeting a couple of weeks ago, Vice Mayor Gillespie asked if we could bring this up as an item for discussion. So at this time, we'll open the floor, and Seth, will turn it over to you.
Yeah, sure. Just briefly, through my process of campaigning and talking to people, it was brought to my attention while we still recognize people with resolutions like we did for Tracy Howard tonight, that the Big Al Hall Award hadn't been nominated in some time. And I know that this was a special award for a lot of people, and I think we've talked amongst ourselves and would like to see it come back. So this is more of us just kind of reintroducing this award, and in the future we'll be looking to take nominations and making nominations. I don't think we plan on doing that tonight, but we just wanted to re-recognize Big Al Hall, his contributions to the city, and would look forward to hopefully awarding someone this award in the future.
Thank you, Seth. 14 people have been recognized over the years with this award since 2011, and certainly we will look, as Seth said, to open up the nomination process. You can certainly contact any of us on council with your thoughts. If you want something to reach all of us, you can either contact us as a group or send something to Jenny Goodman, and she can get it to us to make sure we're aware of that. All right, thank you all very much. Is there any additional discussion about the award? Okay. Hearing none, let's take a look at Appropriation Ordinance 1763.23. This is the New River Resource Authority grant. We've received a grant from the New River Resource Authority in the amount of $5,000. This would help us to work toward a litter prevention and assistance program. As we know, it is so tough to stay ahead of trash. We have a wonderful Adopt-A-Spot program, which we'll be talking more about in the coming weeks as we head to April as a Refresh Radford Cleaning and Greening Month. But having this $5,000, we could use it toward that program. David, do you have any thoughts you want to share with us on that?
Nothing particular in mind. Of course, looking at broadly at, since this is all about the education associated with recycling and reuse efforts and those kind of things, talked a little bit about it. We will put it out there, talk more, and then also look at it as it relates to our overall that amount of money would go far, may help us with our East Main Street project enhancements. Parks, since we've been focusing a number of different things that we do. $5,000 doesn't go very far, but it's good to have the extra money and.
Okay, thank you. Council members, do we have a motion regarding ordinance 1763.23 in the amount of $5,000?
So moved.
We have a motion to adopt. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Is there a motion to do so? So moved. We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of dispensing with a second reading, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, David, the floor is yours.
Speaking of fix up cleanup, we're starting that effort. We're going to begin with our parks and Riverway. You'll see some changes there as we clean up, trying to get some of the invasive species as plants cleaned up so we can see the river more when you're walking down there. A lot of it's gotten overgrown, and that would also promote safety. Folks will be able to see our canoeing and kayaking and floating folks as they're going down the river and draw more attention to that aspect of it. Paint up, fix up stuff, some benches, things like that will be part of those projects. We'll also be focusing in on.
Go for the cold polar plunge.
Is the item that's coming up at the end of the month. A lot of good things going forward. Great event this weekend. Tourism, Parks and Rec joined together with the successful 40 teams came to the market. Where you went this weekend, you saw folks from Tennessee, Utah County, all over the River Valley teams.
Thank you very much. Bobby, I think you have a resolution regarding the rail heritage.
Yes. A resolution of the City of Radford, Virginia City Council seeking approval to expand the Virginia Rail Heritage Region to include the counties of Giles, Montgomery, Pulaski, and the towns of Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Dublin, Glenlyn, Narrows, Pearisburg, Pembroke, Pulaski, Rich Creek, and the City of Radford. Whereas the General Assembly of Virginia authorized the creation of the Virginia Rail Heritage Region within the Commonwealth, consisting of the counties of Allegheny, Amherst, Bedford, Botetourt, Campbell, and Roanoke, and the cities of Bedford, Covington, Lynchburg, Roanoke, and Salem, as well as the towns of Buchanan, Clifton Forge, Troutville, Amherst, Irongate, and Vinton. And whereas the counties of Giles, Montgomery, Pulaski, and the towns of Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Glenlyn, Narrows, Pearisburg, Pembroke, Pulaski, Rich Creek, and the City of Radford have each benefited from the significant contributions of the rail services in our respective communities. And whereas it is important that succeeding generations be equipped to share the history and understanding of the significant role that rail service played in developing our region. Examples of this heritage today include the New River Train Observatory and Rail Heritage Themed Farmers Market in Radford, New River Trail State Park in Pulaski County, the Huckleberry Trail connecting the towns of Blacksburg, Christiansburg, and Montgomery County, and the preserve 1868 and 1906 in Giles County with its quintessential essence of the railroad traveling along the meanders of the New River. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council from the City of Radford, Virginia, hereby requests the General Assembly of Virginia to expand the Virginia Rail Heritage Region to include the counties of Giles, Montgomery, Pulaski, and the towns of Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Dublin, Glenlyn, Narrows, Pearisburg, Pembroke, Pulaski, Rich Creek, and the City of Radford. Be it further resolved that the counties of Giles, Montgomery, Pulaski, town councils of Blacksburg, Christiansburg, Dublin, Glenlyn, Narrows, Pearisburg, Pembroke, Pulaski, and Rich Creek, and the City Council of Radford are each requested to express their concurrence with this request of expansion. And I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second to adopt the Rail Heritage Resolution. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And that's a wonderful thing to have, and certainly things are moving along. David and I both serve on the Train Station Authority as we're looking to bring passenger rail here. Things are moving on down the track with that. And so we will take a look at council member comments. Kelly, what do you have for us this evening?
I don't have a whole lot. I think this was one of the more taxing meetings, I guess. Trying to make everybody happy is not something that any of us can do. I don't think that's possible at all. I do think that we all collectively try to put forth a huge effort in making sure that we review everything that comes to our attention. And I feel confident that together we may not always agree, but we can definitely move forward and help make Radford the best place that it can be. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. If you don't have a significant other, one of the most important things is to love yourself first. So give yourself a hug if you don't have anybody else to hug, but definitely I wish you all the love and joy on Valentine's Day and throughout the rest of the year. I do appreciate everybody coming forward. It definitely gave me some food for thought to think about, and I will definitely reach out and ask more questions and discuss some things and really think about everything that was said tonight. I think that's all. David, thank you always for being so involved and giving us great reports. I especially enjoyed your comment on floating folks. I'll be using that one again in the future. That one tickled me. So, and thank you, council, for being here and wanting to review everything just as much as I do.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Jesse, what do you have?
Yes, this evening, my moment of silence was dedicated to Robert William Kress. I want to first and foremost piggyback on what has already been said. This is one of those evenings where it really is very difficult to be sitting up here because, I think most of us really like the spirit of entrepreneurialism and we like free enterprise, and all these things are so important, but also within the scope of a planning commission, and we've had a lot of expertise weigh in on these projects. And, as I've said before, we're usually not given a really great option and a really bad option, and we get to choose from those two. You get a series of options, all with pros and cons, and with that, we try to engage the community and make the very best decision we can. And just know that with this project, this is just step one. We want to continue having the dialogue with the folks that live in that community and with other members of our community, and also support free enterprise in our community and economic development and the ability to bring more residents here, which we all welcome with open arms. So just to piggyback, tonight is one of those nights where I think we're all going to leave here feeling a little beat up. Also, I think we're all going to sleep really well because this is a topic that we have given a great deal of thought, and we've all conversed among each other as well to get different perspectives. So with that, just to give a little bit of a quick overview of what has happened in Councilwoman Foster's life in the last month. CPMT, that board met February 2nd, and I just wanted to give council some information on some of the children in our community that are receiving services. Right now, well, this is in January, this number is ever evolving, but we had 37 active cases, including 6 private day school placements, 2 residential placements, 12 foster care, 2 independent living placements, and 15 prevention cases. Our original budget from the city is around $800,000, and I think right now we're at $694,000. So we'll be having other conversations, obviously, to follow up, because these are children that we want to care for and are mandated to care for, and currently our budget is not going to cover the vast needs. February 7th, PBS was in town, and they filmed a reading from the Wharton Letters. That was very exciting. I was an extra. If I am discovered, I will still be here for my obligations, but I'm just putting that out there. It was actually, it was really wonderful. This is the second time that I've heard the readings, and if you have not had the opportunity to watch this or to read the Wharton Letters, it is fantastic. And she was sassy. She was something else. So I would encourage everyone to take the time. It's not only a great insight into our local history, but just the ever-evolving relationships. And, they were in the middle of a war on top of that. So I would certainly encourage everyone to read the Wharton Letters. January 26th, we had a chamber board meeting. One of the topics that was really important to everyone was the Easter egg hunt. So mark your calendars. It'll be March 25th, 11 to 2 at Bissett Park. We have upped the eggs, and if I'm not mistaken, are we at 12,000 now?
I think that's pretty much what it's
12,000
going to be. It
eggs.
was 10,000 last year.
So we keep upping it because we have a lot of littles that like to come out and participate. So we're going to have a bounce house, face painting, petting zoo, pictures with the Easter Bunny, and I heard big prizes. So you'll need to do that. Tomorrow, I will be getting a tour of the new hotel, so I'm very eager to do that. And Mayor, are you going on that? So if anyone else on council wants to join me, it is going to be at 3 o'clock. Well, you can message me, and I'll give you the details if you're available, but I welcome, anyone else that wants to or has the time to do it. January 24th, Sweet and Savory had a ribbon cutting, so they are open again, and please go and enjoy their many, many wonderful things to eat and drink. EDA, this is pretty important. The POP program, as you know, They have been assisting local businesses with some beautification to the front of their buildings. And right now, they have actually upped that amount to $5,000. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, get a hold of them. They would love to tell you about the criteria. And certainly, it's symbiotic. It's a benefit for the city as well as a little handshake to those local businesses. And that is all I have for today.
Thank you very much. Seth, what do you have for us?
I think David saw my notes because I wanted to start out as well as thanking the rec department. I mean, that's a huge turnout. 44 teams. That's great, and the impact on small businesses and people stopping and filling up their gas tank, going to Sharky's or going wherever it may be. That goes a long way, and that's something that I feel strongly about building on. Something that I've experienced as a coach in AAU. I know that there's a huge market for that, and I'd really like to see us. I think we this year maybe only have 2 basketball tournaments and 1 volleyball. I don't know if that's for sure, but I'd really love to see us hit the ground running on that and continue to build on it. I think this weekend was a huge success. So wanted to thank Greg Holbrook. I wanted to thank the whole rec staff for pulling that off, and all city staff for helping advertise it. That was a big win for the city. Jesse, you'll be happy to know that I joined the Heritage Foundation. I took you up on your offer, so
wonderful.
yeah,
Good.
wanted to make that known. I also wanted to thank Tracy Howard. He's left, but for his 31 years of service, worked with him on the planning commission. He chaired the planning commission and was just a huge asset and had really has done a good job for this city. Wore many hats for this city. I also wanted to welcome Lindsay Holman and our new registrar, who's about to start. I know we all look forward to working with her. I wanted to thank Gary Harris. He donated a flag, the VFW donated a flag that actually me and Bobby were fortunate and got to raise at the high school. And I think all of us school board are looking to recognize and donate a flag to McHarg. So anytime we can find a new place for Old Glory or refresh one, I'm all for it. So, and lastly, I'll just say that I hope everyone has a great Black History Month, and I truly wanted to recognize the many contributions to this city and the nation, something I'm appreciative of, and I hope everybody has a good Valentine's Day. That's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Bobby, what do you have?
Yeah, I just want to, first and foremost, want to wish Tracy Howard a nice retirement, so I know he'll be doing a lot of fishing. And something I had on my mind, I want to make sure that everybody that comes in here and speaks, that they feel validated. So I think that's the biggest thing that I think we need to do. And I'm not going to get into what has happened, and a lot of us haven't been here. I don't know, and there's 2 sides to every story. I get that. Believe me, I understand that. But I think first and foremost, just make sure people feel validated, and we do our due diligence, and then that way we can go from there and move forward. Okay. So, and I appreciate everybody coming tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. Couple of things that I wanted to bring forward. We did talk about Black History Month. There's a wonderful exhibition at Glencoe about slavery in Appalachia. It particularly talks about some of the slavery in Radford. We do have residents of the city of Radford that are descendants of those folks, and I think it's an important story that we tell, and it's important to contextualize the African-American experience here in our city, the Valley, the Commonwealth, and the nation. So that's an important piece. As a part of that, for many years during the segregation period, Radford students went to Fred Weigel School for their kindergarten through 7th grade, and then they went to Christiansburg Institute for high school. So African-American residents were not able to go to Radford City schools in terms of Belheath and McHarg, Kewen-Barnett, and Radford High School. Christiansburg Institute closed in the mid-'60s. That's when students were integrated back and folks came back to Radford High School. But That property became a little bit dilapidated over time. It is being restored as a heritage location, as a museum, and they reached out to a number of mayors in the New River Valley to show their support. As a council, we've shown our support for Christiansburg Institute in the past. We do recognize our residents and their families' close ties to that facility and the service that it provided. They reached out to me as a mayor to reach out to some of our state finance people. Delegate Ballard, as well as one of our state senators, Senator John Edwards, has put forward resolutions, one in the House, one in the Senate, to help fund Christiansburg Institute. And so I added my name to those of our fellow mayors in the New River Valley supporting that on behalf of our residents. And it's an important part of our history. It's an important part of our community and our valley. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Another piece that I wanted to share was good news we just received today from Chief Dodson. The International Association of Chiefs of Police, the United States Department of Justice COPS Office, and Cop to Cop, which is another organization, published a national level guide for law enforcement agencies that was about implementing peer support services in small and rural law enforcement agencies. As we know, it's not easy to be a law enforcement officer. It's not easy to be a first responder. And trying to find ways to provide appropriate support, mentorship, needed help as is available is really crucial. Radford is being recognized as one of the communities that's doing a great job. It's one of the model agency success stories. I'd like to point out, in addition to Chief Dodson, Lieutenant Ben Mullins, who leads the peer support team. He does a great job, and I'm not going to read this, but I do encourage you to look this up, implementing peer support services in small and rural law enforcement agencies. This is really crucial because we talk about backing the blue, we talk about supporting our police, but when we can do it through peer support, through other programming with our police department, it makes a big difference in the lives of those individuals and their families. And so I just wanted to say kudos to you, Chief Dodson. Thank you so much. To Lieutenant Mullins, thank you, and thank you to the entire team who works on that. That's a really important part. Another way you can help support our police and support the Special Olympics, and Council, I will remind you, on February 25th, you can join me in the New River for the Polar Plunge as we work to raise money alongside our law enforcement officers who are big supporters of the Special Olympics. We're trying to raise money to help those programs. So I will be taking the plunge on February 25th, and I'm sure they would appreciate the support of all of our city staff and members of council. So you all can come join us. You know what? We can separate. We can all go in separately, and I don't think that'll be any problem. Don't throw cold water on my polar plunge. See what I did there? But you know, it's a good time for us to come together as a community. This is not just the plunge for the city of Radford. This is for the entirety of Southwest Virginia. So we'll have folks from north of Roanoke all the way south of Wytheville joining us for that day. Additional hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the city. It's a wonderful weekend for our businesses to take advantage of that evening. I know there's several bands playing in the city, and there's an opportunity for music and food and celebration. But come on out and join the Polar Plunge on February 25th. And with that, we'll accept a motion to adjourn. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say good night. Good night. You know you want to take the plunge. I can tell.